You know, if you've ever walked through the personal finance section of a bookstore, there's one cover that just jumps out at you: Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's been around for over a quarter of a century, and it's still one of the most influential and, yeah, controversial money books ever written. So today, we're going to unpack the whole thing: its core philosophy, how it went from a self-published book to a global sensation, and the pretty serious criticisms that have followed it every step of the way. And just to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, get this. The book has sold over 44 million copies worldwide. It sat on the New York Times bestseller list for more than 6 years straight. This isn't just a book, it's become this massive global brand that completely changed how millions of people think about their money. But here's the real tension, right? For every single person who swears this book changed their life, you'll find a critic who says the advice is just, well, vague, way too risky, or maybe even just a slick get-rich-quick scheme. So, which is it? That's what we're here to figure out. All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the story that's at the heart of the book, The Tale of the Two Dads. Then we'll get into its most famous idea: what an asset really is. After that, we'll look at its wild journey to becoming a bestseller, face the controversies head-on, and then try to make sense of its very polarizing legacy. So the whole foundation of this book, really, is built around this simple but incredibly powerful story. The author, Robert Kiyosaki, learning about money from two totally different father figures in his life. So on one side, you've got his poor dad. That was his actual father, a really smart guy, PhD, who always preached the traditional path: get good grades, find a safe, secure job, you know the drill. But he struggled with money his whole life. And on the other side, there's Rich Dad, his best friend's father. This guy was an entrepreneur, never even finished the 8th grade, but he became incredibly wealthy. Why? Because he focused on financial literacy and owning things that make you money. This contrast, this is the core of the entire book. And this quote just nails it. This is the big mindset shift. Kiyosaki argues that most of us are trained to be like his poor dad. We trade our time for a paycheck. Rich Dad's lesson was the complete opposite. Figure out how to build or buy assets that make money for you so you don't have to do all the heavy lifting yourself. And that whole idea, that mindset shift, it leads us straight into what is probably the book's most famous, most influential, and honestly most controversial lesson: a total redefinition of two very simple words. Forget all the complicated accounting jargon you might have learned. Kiyosaki boils it down to something so simple. An asset, it's anything that puts money in your pocket. A liability, anything that takes money out of your pocket. It sounds almost too simple, right? But the implications of thinking this way are absolutely huge. Okay, and here's where Kiyosaki really starts to shake things up. He says your house, the one you live in, is not an asset. It's a liability. Why? Because every single month, money is flowing out of your pocket for the mortgage, for taxes, for repairs. Same thing for your car. His whole philosophy is that wealthy people focus first on buying income-generating assets, things like rental properties, businesses, stocks, and then they use the cash flow from those assets to buy their luxuries. He even has this visual for it he calls the cash flow quadrant. See, on the left side, you've got employees and the self-employed. Both are basically working for money. But on the right side, you've got business owners who own a system that makes money and investors whose money is actually working for them. For Kiyosaki, the entire goal is to move from the left side of this quadrant over to the right side. That's where he says true financial freedom is. So you have to wonder, how did a book with all these really unconventional ideas blow up and become this global phenomenon? Well, the story of the book itself is almost as interesting as the one it tells. So check this out. Back in 1997, every single major publisher rejected him. So what did he do? He just published it himself. And through some really clever marketing, it started picking up steam. By early 2000, it did something almost unheard of. It hit the New York Times bestseller list as a self-published book. But the real rocket fuel? Getting on the Oprah Winfrey Show. After that, sales just went through the roof, and the book stayed on the bestseller list for over 6 years. But you know what happens when something gets that big? It comes under a microscope. And as financial experts and journalists started to dig in, some pretty serious cracks began to appear in that whole rich dad story. And the criticisms are pretty major. First off, a lot of people are convinced that Rich Dad never actually existed, that he's just a fictional character to make a point. Critics also say the advice is way too general. There are no real actionable steps for a beginner. And then there's Kiyosaki's own business history. His company, Rich Global LLC, actually filed for bankruptcy in 2012. Some people have even pointed out that a few of the strategies in the book sound extremely risky or maybe even illegal. But you can't just write it off, because there's this whole other side to the story. For countless people, this was the very first book that opened their eyes to things like investing and passive income. I mean, tons of successful entrepreneurs and investors will tell you that even if the details are a little shaky, Rich Dad Poor Dad was the spark that got them started on their own financial journey. So that brings us to its legacy today, which is no surprise, just as polarizing as the book itself. How are we supposed to look at this book now, after all these years? When you really lay it all out, you see this split personality. On the good side, it's amazing at getting people interested in finance. It makes complex ideas feel simple, and it really pushes this entrepreneurial can-do mindset. But on the bad side, it gets hit for not having safe, specific advice, for kind of glossing over the real risks of investing, for the whole potentially made-up story, and for being what many see as a sales funnel for really expensive seminars. Maybe the healthiest way to think about Rich Dad Poor Dad comes from a blog called The White Coat Investor. The advice is simple. Treat it like a buffet, not a Bible. Take what you find useful and leave the rest. Recognize that it's a fantastic motivator, great for shifting your mindset, but be critical. Go out and get more detailed, balanced financial advice before you make any big decisions. Ultimately, the book's real legacy might be its ability to just start a conversation. It makes us stop and question everything we were taught about money, about our jobs, and about building wealth. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. What's the best, most impactful piece of financial advice you've ever gotten? And where did it come from? Definitely something worth thinking about.